Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Lord of the Red Drytron Lair of Darkness deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is a really awesome deck that makes very great use of your Lair of Darkness card. Being able to tribute monsters to then get tokens during the end phase is a really awesome effect, and your Drytron monsters and your ritual monsters have to tribute cards to be able to summon them to the side of the field, so you get all sorts of different tokens on your side of the field, ultimately swarming the field with this deck. I really love the way that it plays because you even get to summon the nostalgic monster Lord of the Red to your side of the field, and it is an awesome deck. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name scripted every single video, getting a signed cards mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Lord of the Red. Lord of the Red is a awesome card in this deck and is super cool because it's actually Joey Wheeler in a suit of Red Eyes Black Dragon armor. I love this card and can actually pop 2 cards per turn, because it has the ability that you can ritual summon this card with Red Eyes Transmigration, and then once per turn during either player's turn when a card effect is activated, except Lord of the Red, you can target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it, and if you activate any effect on the field, you can also pop a spell or trap, except for Lord of the Red's effect. So basically you can't chain Lord of the Red to Lord of the Red, but you can pop a spell or trap and a monster if you activate any other effect during that turn, which is a really good effect to be able to do. We then play a single copy of the Meteonus Drytron ritual monster. This card is really good in this deck because you get to ritual summon this card with Meteonus Drytron, and your opponent cannot target this card with monster effects. And if the total level of the monsters, or the total levels of the monsters sent to the graveyard for this card's ritual summon is 2 or less, then this card can attack all special summon monsters your opponent controls, which comes in very handy when we start attacking into the tokens that our opponent is potentially going to get against us, which is really helpful to just be able to board wipe all of those tokens. It also has the ability that during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish monsters from your graveyard whose combined attack equals exactly 2 or 4,000, and then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls for every 2,000 attack total that you used for this effect, and send those cards to the graveyard, which is a great effect because you can just banish 1 or 2 Drytron monsters from the graveyard to then use this card's effect to be able to send cards to the graveyard, which comes in very handy. We then play 3 copies of Alpha Thuban. Alpha Thuban is a great card in this deck. This card is really good, especially with Lair of Darkness, because it has the ability that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned with the effect of a Drytron card. And then all Drytron share that ability and the following ability, that you have to tribute 1 other Drytron monster or ritual monster from your hand or field to special summon them from your hand or grave in defense position, which is a really good effect because it's going to activate the effect of your Lair of Darkness when you tribute the monsters from the field to then special summon out your copies of your Drytron monsters. So this card comes in very handy to go into that play. Now this card is a unique effect that it searches a ritual monster when it's special summoned to the field, but all of your Drytron monsters share the ability also that for the rest of the turn you cannot special summon monsters except monsters that cannot be normal summoned or set the turn you activate this effect. So for example, you can't special summon out a copy of Red Eyes Black Dragon to your field, but you can normal summon it, but you can special summon out Lord of the Red because it can't be normal summoned. Just for a little reference for you guys. We then play 3 copies of Drytron Zeta. Drytron Zeta searches your ritual spells, which comes in very handy in this deck to search out all the ritual spells we might need. We play 2 copies of Gamma because upon summon of this card, you get to special summon out a Drytron from the graveyard that has 2,000 attack, giving you 2 monsters on the field. And then the last Drytron I play is a single copy of Delta, because Delta has the ability that when it's summoned, you can reveal a ritual monster, ritual spell in your hand and draw an additional card, which is really easy to do in this deck because usually you will have a ritual monster, ritual spell in the hand. We then play 3 copies of Arima. Arima comes in very handy because you can discard this card from your hand to be able to search a Lair of Darkness from the deck, which is the big effect that I'm using with this card. And then I play a single copy of Red Eyes Black Dragon and a single copy of Dark Magician, so I can go into a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Now you might notice I'm not playing Darkest Diabolos. The reason I'm not playing it is because it kind of goes against the Drytron's effect, because you can't special summon it because it can be normal summoned set, which is why I actually dropped it from this build. So that's it for the monsters. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Red Eyes Fusion because we're going to be using this to go into our copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoons, which is a great card in this deck to summon out to your side of the field alongside your copy of your Lord of the Red. We play a single copy of Magical Eyes Fusion so we can go to a second copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoons, which is really helpful for this deck to be able to go into a second copy of the card. We play 2 copies of the Meteonist Drytron. This card is a ritual spell for the deck. I play 2 copies of it because I'm primarily using this card to ritual summon, and it has the ability that this card can be used to ritual summon any ritual monster from your hand or graveyard, and you must also tribute machine monsters from your hand or field whose total attack equal or exceed the attack of the ritual monster you're attempting to ritual summon. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a Drytron monster you control. It loses exactly 1,000 attack points and until the end phase of your opponent's turn, and if it does, add this card back from your graveyard to your hand, which is a really good effect just to be able to get this card straight back to your hand. We then play 3 copies of Red Eyes Transmigration. I'm pretty much playing this card because you can combo it with your copy of Pre-Prep of Rites, but the reason you play this card is because it can be ritual summon, or you can ritual summon out Lord of the Red, and you must also tribute monsters from your hand or field and or banish Red Eyes monsters from your graveyard whose level equal 8 or more, which is very easy to do in this deck, but primarily you're using this card to be able to search, to be able to use with the Meteonist Drytron, or be able to use the Meteonist Drytron to be able to summon out your Lord of the Red and search this card with your copy of Pre-Prep of Rites, which we actually play 3 copies of Pre-Prep of Rites in this deck. Pre-Prep of Rites has the ability that you can add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand whose name is listed on the ritual spell, so you can add Lord of the Red from your deck to your hand with Red Eyes Transmigration, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Cyber Emergency. Cyber Emergency is really good because this card searches literally any one of your Drytrons that you need, being able to then loop them back and forth to be able to get you all sorts of searches. We play 3 copies of Drytron Nova. Drytron Nova is here because it special summons a Drytron from your deck, but destroy it during the end phase, which is a really good effect just to be able to give us basically a quick launch effect to be able to special summon any Drytron from the deck that then we can tribute and then special summon out another Drytron and then kind of tag back with the one that we special summoned Alpha Nova to get that one back on the field by tributing the one that we tributed for originally. We then play 3 copies of Lair of Darkness. Lair of Darkness is a very unique card in this deck because all face-up monsters on the field become dark, and then once per turn, if you would tribute on monsters you control to activate a card or effect, you can tribute a dark monster your opponent controls even though you do not control it. So basically you can use your opponent's monsters to summon out your cards to your side of the field, which is a really good effect. Now, you can't use it with ritual spells, but you can use it with other cards, which this card is a really good effect. And it also has the ability that once per turn during the end phase, special summon as many torment tokens, Fiend, Dark, level 3, attack 1,000, defense 1,000 as possible to the turn player's field and defense position up to the number of monsters tributed this turn while this card was face on the field. So you get all sorts of really good effects when you tribute for your Drytrons, when you tribute for your copies of your ritual monsters, when you use all sorts of different cards in this deck. This card comes in really handy because you can get a whole bunch of tokens on your side of the field to then start link climbing on the next turn. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization for the last 3 spells. Super Polymerization is here because it can out literally anything in the game. You just discard a card from your hand, which usually is a Drytron, and they will still be live in the hand or in the graveyard, so you basically get a free fusion summon, which is really good, using your opponent's monsters, going into some really powerful cards like your Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, and with Lair of Darkness, your opponent's monsters count as dark, so we have a couple of other super poly targets that we can actually use in the deck with our card of Lair of Darkness. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. And I will say this deck is really crazy to play. And you probably noticed I'm not playing Fafnir, the Drytron field spell. I don't play it because the Lair of Darkness is a field spell and I don't want to play 2 different field spells. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Drytron Mu Beta Fafnir. Mu Beta Fafnir comes in really handy because it has the ability that when you ritual summon, you can detach materials from this card as monsters required for the ritual summon, and you can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. If this card is Xyz summon, you can send 1 Drytron card from your deck to the graveyard, and when your opponent activates a spell or trap, while you control a machine ritual monster, quick effect, you can detach a material from this card and negate the activation if you do destroy it, which comes in very handy just to give you a spell and trap negation. We then play 2 copies of a Red Eyes Dark Dragoons. Red Eyes Dark Dragoons comes in very handy in this deck because you can use the Dragoons to give you additional negations, and it works with the deck really well because it is Lord of the Red, and you're playing Red Eyes, and this card is essentially a Red Eyes Black Dragon and Dark Magician boss monster, so it fits perfectly into this deck. And being able to use your Drytrons to discard for the cost of being able to negate something is really good because they're still alive in the graveyard. This card also can't be targeted or destroyed by card effects, so it's a really hard card to out, and it can pop 2 cards on the field that are monsters per turn and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of the monsters. We then play for our Super Poly target. We're playing the Predaplant that takes 3 dark monsters because it can out 3 cards on your opponent's side of the field. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon because it can out 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field if you have Lair of Darkness and Super Polymerization. And then a single copy of Mud Dragon, which Mud Dragon comes in very handy in this deck because you can use the Mud Dragon to be able to use with Super Poly. So this card comes in very handy to out all sorts of cards, but they have to be 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. And with Lair of Darkness, it's going to make everything the same attribute. So this card does come in handy sometimes if you've already used the other 2. We then play a single copy of the Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. This card is crazy good in this deck because it just takes 2 monsters that were special summoned from the X deck, and with the tokens, you're going to be able to link climb very easily with this card. When this card is link summoned to the field, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects, and also monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this one, which protects our tokens so we can link climb even higher. And this card can also out pretty much every special summon monster in the game because you can attack through them with this card, which is really good. We then play a single copy of the Unchained Abomination. Now, the reason I play this card is because it works really well with my Lord of the Red, because if a card's on the field is destroyed by a card effect, then you can target a card on the field and destroy it, which combos super well with our copy of Lord of the Red. And this card can also has the ability that when another monster on the field is destroyed in battle, you can target on the field and destroy it, and then during the end phase, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. So basically, mandatorily activate your copies of Lord of the Red, which is really, really good. We then play a single copy of Unicorn because we can spin stuff, Phoenix to pop spells and traps, a single copy of Defender of the Labyrinth because you can actually use your tokens to summon this card because it just takes 2 normal monsters, and non-effect monsters you control gain 500 attack, and also effect monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. And if this card on the field in its possession, in the owner's possession, is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target 1 non-effect monster in the graveyard and special summon it back to your side of the field, which can be your Red Eyes Black Dragon. We play a single copy of Wee Witch because we're primarily playing dark monsters after we get Lair of Darkness on the field, so it boosts them up to 2,500 on our Drytron monsters, and can boost Lord of the Red all the way up to 2,900. We play a single copy of IP Masquerade because we can link summon during our opponent's turn into a Nightmare Unicorn. We play a single copy of our Predaplant Verte Anaconda because you can use it with your Red Eyes Fusion, you can use it with Magical Eyes Fusion, or you can use it with Super Poly, so this card comes in very handy in the deck. And for the last card of the deck, we're playing a single copy of Link Spider, and the reason you're playing Link Spider in this deck is because you can use it with your tokens to turn them into effect monsters or monsters with different names to then climb into a copy of Nightmare Phoenix to give you spell and trap pops, which is really good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I really love the way that this deck turned out. I even tried to make it a little bit more like friendly for budget besides the copies of Dragoons, which you can change them out for like Rainbow Neos if you want to change it out for Rainbow Neos, which is a little bit more budget of an option for this deck. But it's a really fun deck to play around with and be able to go into some really amazing cards, especially with your Drytron cards and just making great use of Lair of Darkness and using your cards like Lord of the Red. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.